Sarawak, East Malaysia's gateway to the wild frontiers of untouched Borneo. Home to over 2 million people from more than 20 indigenous groups. But hidden beneath the tropical calm lay remnants of its turbulent past. Sarawak has been forged by the fires of war, colonialism, and rebellion, and is even said to be once an ancient land of magic and ritual. My name is Anthony Morse, and in this episode of Hidden Cities, we uncover the forgotten kingdom of a former British adventurer, reveal the secrets behind a disappearing headhunting tribe, learn about the tragic story of early Chinese gold miners, and examine the healing rituals of Sarawak's ancient shamans. Sarawak is the largest state of the Malaysian Federation and is one of the world's biggest exporters of tropical hardwood. Known as the land of the hornbills, this state is celebrated for its rich blend of tribal traditions and natural wonders. Over 170 years ago, Sarawak was under the rule of the Sultan of Brunei until the arrival of a British adventurer changed the course of its history forever. August 1838. The private ship of James Brooke docked along the shores of Sarawak. Brooke was on an adventure to explore the exotic East Indies. But instead, he found the Sultan struggling to control an open revolt by local indigenous tribes. Capitalizing on the situation, Brooke stepped in and helped to suppress the uprising. For his reward, James Brooke claimed rule over Sarawak and was awarded the title of the White Raja by the Sultan of Brunei, identifying him as a monarch in the Southeast Asian region. This marked the beginning of the Brooke family dynasty that would span over 100 years. His early rule, however, would be challenged by one of Borneo's most fearsome tribes, the Iban headhunters. Revered throughout Sarawak as formidable warriors, the Iban headhunters were territorial tribesmen, notorious for making terrifying examples of their enemies by collecting their skulls as trophies. I traveled to the Skrang River, a former stronghold of these fierce warriors. My journey brings us to an Iban community living along the banks of the Skrang River. Many families still live together under one roof in a traditional longhouse. I meet Chief Ban Singh, a modern-day Iban. Today, Ban Singh and his family are Christian, but they still remember their tribal roots. Quite long, huh? From one end to the other? How many families are staying here in this longhouse? 26. Wow, all living together. Besides maintaining the tradition of living in longhouses, for the Ibans, the glory of their past encounters is etched on their skins. I noticed, like, the Iban men, they have tattoos all along the length of their arms, their backs, their shoulders. What's the significance of these tattoos?
Kedua lagi bisi ke tujuh maya orang Malayanya subak deh ngai ni mbak ya ya macam ke siti nya Tituanya bisa ukir, yang berupa anak laki ke, yang tak bakal orang Indo, yang berkata, yang kaya nanti ada bungai semua, yang bakal Indo.
Each of these tattoos represents a story in the life of the Iban man. So if we were to take a look at your tattoos, like I can see right here, it says 1955, Salamat Tinggal. What does this one represent?
Soalnya tikang mata orang Indo, selamat tinggal orang Indo dari kayak tua, sebelah mengeri sini, lah rumah panjai, rumah kerjalai, kenyak artinya.
Ah, one of your most memorable romances, huh? Back in the 15th century, however, the first Iban settlers to arrive in Sarawak faced a much more turbulent time. They discovered a land already populated with other indigenous tribes, fiercely protective of their territory. Driven to war for land, the Ibans began the deadly practice of headhunting, a tradition that would terrorize their enemies for centuries to come. Only families of the warrior caste are allowed to display head trophies outside their homes as a mark of their status. The practice of headhunting also provided the Ibans with other benefits. Was there also any kind of spiritual dimension to this practice as well?
Nak temu, kira engkau bakal kita hidup tu, ya, aku berani kita nulung orang tahu kenyak ni, nah ini makan siapa ya sampai lama ni, nulung kenyak.
As I was looking at these skulls and kind of scanning down the posts, I noticed this right here, this stone slab with looks like candle wax.
Jadi tu nya batu dilang kok kami, jadi keliak rumah lagi lama lagi, ambil kayu tungkun itu siasap ya ke. Jadi dia tengah ketuk celom, beritu tu nada sap dian tu, kena ya berkindu, lepas tu tetuknya nada tahu nak berkindu, pengambilan nada itu tiap sebulan sekali meri api di tu dah, celap nemu munyi, kuai munyi.
The headhunting tradition became an initiation rite for young warriors. They had to prove their mettle by taking the head of an enemy back to bless their longhouse. Iban women would carry the heads up and down their verandas to celebrate the bravery of their fathers and their brothers. Chief Bansing shares that there is also an art to preparing a skull trophy for the longhouse.
Tu palak kita tu punya. Maka tu perempuan orang tu di tu lubang ni, jalan orang temuai untaknya, kalian naik buai kurah orang, kami nak bau, ya kami si lubang ada tu ya.
Now what about all the hair and then the skin?
Kalau ngok kulit, kalau ngok tu, cuma untak aja buai ngok, dilahnya buai orang.
Yeah, but the actual skin and the hair they would leave on, and then over the course of time, it would eventually just kind of rot off. What do you think, Chief? This is about the size of my head, huh? The practice of headhunting had given the Ibans a fearsome reputation throughout Sarawak. It was this reputation that James Brooke exploited in order to launch a full-scale war against them. He painted the Ibans of the Skrang River as bloodthirsty natives who hunted human heads for sport. Chief Bansing was descended from the very Iban tribes who fought the White Raja for control of the Skrang River in the mid-1800s. Now, during James Brooke's era, he really painted the Ibans as being ruthless headhunters. And today I'm curious, you as a modern Iban, how do you feel about that depiction of the Ibans?
Ngena dia tu, nada teu kenya agi ya, nyo dah deal narga. Ni kelai kita Iban teu gulai, jadi ngocina, jadi ngomelayu, mesti jadi kurang putih macam ni. Ni nyo tampil megang ni.
Since the end of the war between the Ibans and the White Raja in 1861, Christianity and Islam have spread throughout the Ibans, changing their animistic practices. Many families have even discarded their skull trophies and ceremonial ornaments, cutting links with their tribal pasts. But others have managed to preserve their culture.
Hey! Hi, Chief.
I meet up with Chief Mingat.
Hey, I like what you've done with the place.
Chief Mingat is one of the few Ibans who still maintain a collection of heirlooms. Among his prized possessions are traditional Iban costumes that were once used for rituals and ceremonies.
Wow, this is a loincloth. I don't even know where to begin with this. Man, this is long. Yeah. Oh, there we go. I would love to wear that hat. Obviously, my head's a lot bigger than the Chief's. Now, Chief, what's the significance of this hat? Why is there a hornbill on it?
Kami ngalkat ketu ngambil ke orang induk mendak kena kami ngajat udah ngalkat ke dia lagi orang semua orang ketika kami ngajat pala kenyalanya pada orang mana.
You've still got some moves left in you, so can you show me some of the basic steps?
From the late 1980s, Iban longhouses experienced a boom in tourism. Dances such as this were used to welcome the guests as well as showcase their traditional costumes.
Hey, nice! Now, did the Iban have some kind of victory dance that they would do after conquering their enemies?
Bunuh, aja bunuh.
Oh, yeah?
The graceful movement of the Bunu dance is in fact a pantomime of the headhunting attack and victory.
Chief, why does this particular dance look like a combination of martial arts moves?
Makakakon tahu. Dia kami bas. Jadi orang kamantap aku mesti ilan kau tahu itu. Nyalai kami bakal tika bakun tahu. Nya ajat bunuh orang mesti bersilan kau tahu baik. Nya orang ajat bunuhnya. Mesti kaki mesti japat, jari mesti japat. Ajat bunuh.
But if it's a martial art form, why use it in the art of celebration?
Ya, orang ajat bunuh. Dia tu orang dia tu ajat kena orang kami, orang maya orang rami ke, hati maya gawai, nya ajat bunuh tu kena rami, kena orang namanya orang gawai tu mesti kalinduk benda orang ajat berbunuh. Alai dia tu artinya dia tu nadai adat berbunuh lagi. Alai kita yang nama ajat bunuh. Olehnya nondak ke aki pihak tu mengayau pihak orang ajat bunuh.
Very interesting. While shadowing his movements, I'm beginning to understand how this dance came about. It really is embodying the attacking movements. All these small leg motions would have been kind of representing the uneven terrain that they would have been battling on. And of course, the sword movements, it's all close quarter combat, so it's kind of this shorter hacking motions. Today, obviously, they're not going out on raids or attacking other neighboring tribes. And yet, the spirit of the warrior still remains within them. They have to have a way of remembering or embodying this kind of warrior spirit that's in their culture. And so how do they do it? They do the war dance. Yeah.
The next stop in our journey takes us to a former gold mining settlement where thousands of Chinese immigrants once thrived. But that golden opportunity would soon take a tragic turn. Located along the northwestern coastline of Borneo, Sarawak is well known for its abundance in natural resources that include timber and petroleum. However, nearly 200 years ago, early Chinese immigrants stumbled on a find more precious than anyone could have imagined. In 1823, gold was discovered in a small region known as Bao, 50 kilometers to the east of Sarawak's main settlement of Kuching. A gold rush ensued, and Hakka Chinese miners from neighboring Indonesia poured in to seek their fortunes. They set up a gold mining settlement in Bao as their numbers swelled. By the late 1930s, there were thousands of Chinese working the gold mines. I traveled to present-day Bao town to explore the secrets behind these former mines. Today, years after gold mining has stopped, Bao is still known as the gold town of Sarawak. Many inhabitants of the town are also of Chinese descent. My investigation brings me in touch with Mr. Chai, a local Hakka Chinese whose family has lived in Bao for years.
我公公在中国来的时候就是来这边做金矿啦，现在大概我是第3代了，这边的了。现在他们有的是剪头发，有卖面的，有的卖5金的，剪头发啦。他们是父亲是上次也是从中国来，老板呢。
So I actually have a history of gold mining in your family history then.
Even though the locals have adapted to other sources of livelihood, hints of their gold mining past still remain. I asked Mr. Chai to bring me to one of these many abandoned mines to find out what it was like at the height of the gold rush.
现在啊，这个上次是平地来了，过后他们堵啊洞拿那个泥土起来做金的，过后现在就变到大湖里面去了。
Wow, so this entire area was once their kind of working ground or the mine areas. How many caves are here in this area?
现在呢，那洞那边有5、6个，过后这边有1个，还有过那边去，那边有还有3个大洞的啦。
So there would have been about 50 to 60 workers just here at this site alone. But that would have been multiplied throughout this entire area. So literally thousands of workers just in the surrounding area.
To get a better sense of the conditions the miners had to work under, we head inside a former mine.
This is quite impressive. This is big, actually. Much bigger than I expected. I can see up there some actual drill holes, evidence of blasting, and even right over here as well.
上次啊，他们是用铁锤和那个钢铁来打的，打一个洞过后放药进去炸出来的，没有美心的，这是用手工的。
I imagine that originally if this tunnel would have been much, much smaller.
我上次它洞不会大，因为用手工打的啊，用那个炸药炸的啊，他要看那个石头的路啦，金的石头的路有多大就多大金了。这个啊，大概有10多年了，没有人做工这边的啦，因为这个现在这个金这边金已是没有了啦。
The gold mines of Bao were closed as most of the mines had been exhausted and the remaining deposits were too deep or dangerous to extract.
这个木板是上次有放上面去那边拿泥土的，因为现在那个泥土现在是很危险啦，你没有注意那条河跌下来以后跌到身体就会弄伤啦，结果现在他们就不要做了啦。
Today, opportunistic locals still prospect these abandoned mines, looking to make their fortunes. What they find, however, may not be worth the risk.
这个是上次我的爸爸和我们的爷爷拿的金石头，就是这个咯。啊，这个是不是很高的金了？这是有差不多有20%左右，这个石头了，有金的了。
How in the world were you able to notice that this had some traces of gold on it?
那你看到你说全部是金，这个是没有，这个平常的石头，这个没有用的。你要看到它有一点红红的，红红的这个是它的泥土了。你看这是有金的。
Imagine what a difficult task it would have been to find gold in here. I mean, he's talking about red sediments on a rock. We're in a cave full of red sediments everywhere. It would have been such a impossible, really. I certainly would have been useless at this.
The gold mines of Bao fueled a thriving Chinese settlement in the 1820s. But less than 30 years later, this prospering boomtown would be razed to the ground in a bloody massacre. And the man responsible for it was none other than the White Raja himself, James Brooke. In the early 1800s, Hakka Chinese miners prospecting in Bao area hit pay dirt. They unearthed 24-karat gold buried deep underground. The ensuing gold rush sparked a thriving boomtown known as Maosan Settlement, until events took a tragic turn. In 1857, James Brooke, the White Raja of Sarawak, set fire to the town, killing over 2,000 settlers, including women and children. Why would the ruler of the land turn a prospering gold town into an ash-filled cemetery? My research brings me to a suburban neighborhood just minutes away from the main town of Bao. Just over 150 years ago, this was the site of Maosan Settlement.
Hello, Dr. Chan.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Anthony.
Welcome you to the historical site of Maosan.
My contact is a local historian who has written extensively about Bao District's Chinese heritage.
The temple here was the first temple built when the Chinese settlement settled out here. On the way up to the higher level here, there were 2 rows of shop houses where there are coffee shop and opium shop open in the olden days.
So even today, I mean, that concept is still the same, because today with the shop houses, we have the storefront in the bottom level,
yes,
and the living quarters kind of up above.
Yeah.
Maosan had its own sovereign identity and was governed by its appointed leader, Liu Shanpang.
And this is the flag post built by Liu Shanpang when they started the Maosan here.
Wow. This flag post then is basically 190 years old.
Events took a sharp turn, however, when the White Raja began eyeing its lucrative gold mines.
James Brooke came in 1841. After grabbing the Kuching, they want to take over the Upper Sarawak, that is Maosan, of which our Prime Minister Liu Shanpang refused.
What was James Brooke doing?
He came here to disturb, that is to say, want to impose tax, want to interfere the export of gold here, and then third thing, want to grab the land so that they can stay under the full control of him.
In 1857, frustration with James Brooke's constant attempts to establish control over the gold town broke out into open rebellion. Led by Liu Shanpang, 600 armed miners attacked and occupied the Brooke stronghold of Kuching for 3 days before returning to Maosan Settlement. Their failure to kill James Brooke, however, would prove tragic for the people of Maosan. Brooke's response was swift and deadly. On February 25, 1857, he torched Maosan Settlement, killing more than 2,000 settlers as revenge for the plunder of Kuching.
Most of them were killed in the ghost cave, and on the way from Kuching back to Mao Shan here. And then those who survive then escape to Indonesia. That is not many.
So he just basically wanted to squash out or wipe out any potential threat to his power.
Yes, if they don't wipe them out, later on they may start another rebellion to counter-attack James Brooke again.
The Chinese Miners' Rebellion may have happened over 150 years ago, but the memory of the event remains firmly etched in the district of Bao.
Nice to meet you, Mr.
I meet with Mr. Ngui, a local Hakka Chinese who is bringing me to pay my respects to Liu Shanbang, the man who led the tragic rebellion of 1857.
这个是他以前啊，在战死的时候就放在这边了。
Now I've noticed all these joss sticks kind of placed here in the mound. How long have people been coming to pay their respects here?
自从这个刘占邦有了这个墓之后啊，每年都有善男信女来拜了，差不多到现在130多年的历史。
Is this a common practice in Chinese culture?
就是因为说崇拜他哦，为了整个华人区的利益，而把整个真实罪度外，就是跟这个老家抗争啊，而在这边的那个地位很高。
The rebels in the 1857 uprising were always viewed as the antagonists. But it was not until the 1980s that people began to reinterpret their own local history. These people who were involved in the uprising were not rebels at all, but actually turned out to be national heroes. And so really a indicator of how this present-day town has a very strong sense and connection to its past.
The White Rajas of Sarawak suppressed the Chinese gold miners as well as Iban headhunters to establish power over the state. But in order to hang on to that authority, the Brookes required something else, the might of gunpowder.
Unlike many other former colonies in Southeast Asia that were under British imperial rule, Sarawak's history is unique in that it was the private kingdom of the Brooke family.
But how did one family manage to rule a land that spans 120,000 square kilometers for more than a century? James Brooke, who was given rule over Sarawak by the Sultan of Brunei, spent the early years of his reign suppressing uprisings. By the end of his rule, he had created a kingdom that united over 20 different indigenous groups. In 1863, James Brooke was succeeded as the White Raja by his nephew, Charles Brooke. Nicknamed the Builder by some, Charles Brooke was the strategist who left nothing to chance. My research tells me that military power alone did not help Charles Brooke maintain his dominion over Sarawak. Our investigation brings us to the town of Sri Aman, a former stronghold of the Iban headhunters. Located on the bank of the Batang Lupar River, Sri Aman was an important gateway to the trading ports of Kuching. It was here that Charles Brooke built Sarawak's first military outpost in 1864, Fort Alice.
Hello, Rama?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Anthony. Nice to meet you.
My contact is Rama, a curator with the Sarawak Museum who is going to reveal how the fort was more than just for defense.
This fort, it's very different from typical forts that you see with like gun placements or cannon placements. I mean, the fact that it was all built from wood.
Actually, this was built as a landmark to say that, okay, this is the Brooke area. So this is their administration center
So really, this wasn't so much a defensive fort, but more a symbol of the presence of the White Raja, as well as an indicator of how far, they were able to extend their power, all the way here to Sri Aman.
Yeah.
Doesn't really feel like a typical fort. I mean, it definitely has kind of a administrative center type of vibe to it. And all of these posts here, these are actual wood posts, right?
This is wood from one tree trunk. It's called bilian. We can find it in Borneo. And then will last for like more than 100 years.
Now, is this original?
This was new because this building has housed a few changes of administration, like from the Brooke era. They also housed the Japanese. And then during the Malaysia time also, this fort also housed the courtroom, post office even. It's really a historical building.
Fort Alice marked the beginning of civil administration over the interior of Sarawak. Charles Brooke presided as judge in Fort Alice over various disputes among the locals. He also made the fort a center for government officials to attend to the locals, pioneering the region's civil service in place of the feudal tribal system. Charles Brooke continued building a string of forts across Sarawak to reinforce his rule. His web of fortifications stretched from the interior of Sarawak to the stronghold of Kuching. Kuching was the seat of power for the Brookes throughout their reign in Sarawak. Today, it is a modern capital and the commercial hub of the state. Our destination is its last surviving guardians from the era of the White Rajas. Fort Margarita, one of the last and most modern forts built by Charles Brooke. Built on the north bank of the Sarawak River, the fort contains cannon placements that boast an impressive arc of coverage of the waterway and the city center.
Hello, Heidi.
I'm meeting with Heidi Munan, a historian and curator at the Sarawak Museum.
Now, so was this fort then built as a defensive fort or as a way of kind of keeping out the pirates?
I think it's way after the time when pirates came all the way up to Kuching. But it was built as a prestige thing. And to make the point, this is our fort, here we are, don't mess with us.
Because, I mean, if you were coming in along the river, this would be one of the first things you saw. Mm-hmm. Maybe can you flesh out a little bit about the 1880s?
We're talking about the reign of Raja Charles, when they're fighting for territory and really hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Well, that was over. And we'll look at the fort. The Raja had money to build something quite substantial. There was a bit of money. We were establishing ourselves, if that's the right word for the Brookes. And I think, yeah, it was a time of consolidation.
So whereas James Brooke was really kind of the adventurer, soldier type, it was Charles Brooke who was the builder and responsible for kind of just building upon what had already been established, refining it.
Yeah, he built, he expanded, he administered. He had an idea of administration and he had an idea of finance, which James did not.
More than a symbol of status, Fort Margarita was an early tool in helping Charles Brooke institute the rule of law.
Used to be a policeman.
His code of justice, however, could be harsh at times.
This would be like the central courtyard?
Yes, it is not. I can't remember exactly where, but they had a gallows, they had a drop there, a trapdoor and all the rest of it.
In the early stages then, it was actually still execution by hanging?
Sometimes by firing squad. It's sort of, I don't know who it depended on.
I mean, these ways of executing seem like a very harsh code of law. How did it go with the locals back then?
Well, I don't think the locals saw it as foreigners interfering. Imagine a guy is murdered. They catch the murderer, they hang him. Well, the guy who was murdered was a local. All his bereaved family were all locals, and I suppose they like to see justice done. They did not have many executions. The normal thing was you get a term of penal servitude, as it was called.
So sort of a way of kind of removing the negative stigma.
I think so, yes.
Charles Brooke's son, Viner Brooke, succeeded him as Sarawak's third and final White Raja in 1917. He continued Charles's work in developing Sarawak and focused on expanding commerce and infrastructure. Heidi brings me to Padungan Street that still contains hints of how Viner Brook transformed the face of modern Kuching.
Back in the day then, after World War I mean, this would have been kind of the most modern or developed part of Kuching then, right?
Pretty much, yes. You see how the houses were built, not just for being a useful business house, but for being beautiful. They made decorations, they made false fronts. These things are not the gables of the roof, they're just facade. No one in the main bazaar did that, they wouldn't waste their money.
Definitely a form of a status symbol, right?
This is the new part of town and we're showing you the way. Look at the road itself. Double lane road, so wide. Everybody thought the Raja was crazy to build a road this wide. Now we think it's the only road in Kuching.
Yeah.
It's wide enough.
But after over 100 years of ruling Sarawak, the Brooks would soon lose their power. The Japanese invaded Sarawak during World War II, ending the Brooke family rule. After its liberation 3 years later, Sarawak became a British colony. It was only in the early 60s that Sarawak became part of an independent Malaysia.
After so many years have passed, how do people living here in Sarawak feel about kind of the White Raja's era?
Mostly I think it's a bit of nostalgia. No one says, ooh, we want the Rajas back. Not that. Neither, oh, they were wicked, wicked people. It's just a part of our history. There's one thing the Rajas did for Sarawak. Not all that many people appreciate that, but they prized Sarawak away from the Brunei rule. When the time came for forming Malaysia and stuff of that sort, Sarawak was an entity of its own, not under the suzerainty of another Borneo power. That I think we have to credit the Rajas with.
The Brooks changed the face of Sarawak, transforming it from a feudal land of conflicting tribes into a modern state. But for centuries before their arrival, an ancient tribe had already found the secret to living peacefully. Their methods have been known to engage the world of the supernatural. The Malanaos. Believed to be the earliest inhabitants of Sarawak, they settled along the coastal regions of the state, living off the land's rich abundance. But their rustic traditions hide other secrets. The Malanaos believe in a strong spiritual connection to the land and are among Sarawak's most ancient shamans. My quest to track down the Malanaos' mysterious practices takes me to the town of Muka. Today, Muka is home to a large Malanao population, many of whom are descendants from the same shamanistic tribes of ancient times.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
My guide, Diana Rose, is a Malanao writer, committed to preserving her heritage. Diana also runs a homestay modeled after a traditional Malanao longhouse.
I mean, you have to even take a step back to kind of take it all in because it's so big.
About 11 years ago, I built this, but the original house is higher. It should be as high as that tree.
No.
Yeah, it is.
That's about 30 feet high.
Yes, because it's 3 stories actually.
What in the world would they build it that high for?
One is for glory now, one is for security. We are under threat from people from the interior, from the headhunters, and then we have from the sea, from pirates. So that's the reason why I built a toll house, basically for sanctuary. Another one is glory because most of the people in the toll house are aristocrats.
As one of the earliest inhabitants of Sarawak, the Malanao faced competition for land when other tribes began migrating into the area. Faced with the threat of war, the Malanao devised an intricate system of diplomacy. Using food as a commodity, they would trade with rival tribes as a means of establishing peaceful relationships.
This is part of our family gathering food. Usually we have this in the middle and we have a lot of other food in between, and then we have a big family gathering. Everybody fight for this and eat all the side food.
Everything on this table represents traditional Melanau food, but here we are eating rice.
This is something that we have adopted. The Melanau people basically start eating rice 1930s until today.
So then where does the rice come from? Do you guys grow it?
In the past, we don't actually. We got our rice from our neighbors, basically the Iban, through barter trading. Because what we do is that we sell them what we have here, the fish and everything, and then they in exchange, they pay us with the rice. It's part of our diplomatic relations, actually.
Beyond establishing a system of diplomacy in the face of hostile tribes, the Melanaus also developed an ancient healing tradition involving the spiritual world. Diana is taking me to witness the crafting of an important ritual artifact.
He's carving a balloon, a healing dolls. When we go to a ritual babayo, so if you have a kind of illnesses that is caused by a spirit, so the shaman, so the babayo person will go and cast out the bad spirit that caused your illnesses and then transfer this to this doll. If the spirit that caused your illness is from the forest, then they will hang up in a tree in the forest, or it's from the river, then it's just throw down in the river.
Returning the spirit back to nature.
Yes, back to where they come from.
Okay.
Shamans tending to a patient would first identify the kind of spirits causing the illness based on his symptoms. Balloons would then be used to draw the spirits out of the patient's body in a healing ritual. Each balloon image is handcrafted for a specific illness, and there are over 300 different types of diseases catered for.
What is this supposed to represent? What illness?
This is what they call Bao Pengamo. It's for when you feel overall discomforts, hard in breathing, you want to vomit, and then you feel very restless, and you feel that as if you're going to lose your mind.
The healing ritual is conducted by a babayo, traditionally the most important person in the village. After consulting with many of the locals, we finally locate one of the last surviving babayos in Muka. The ritual begins with the ceremonial rite, where the babayo takes an old arrowhead to all the members of his family to bite. This rite ensures that evil will not befall on his family. He then proceeds into a state of trance. At this moment, the babayo is possessed by his spirit guides. These spirits will heal the patients brought before the babayo. Today's patient is a Chinese man who has come from the city to seek advice from the babayo.
Our belief system in the past is that between the spirit world and our human world, there's very thin line dividing it. And it's all this rites, this ritual, the language he used, even the articles that he used in his healing, is all taught by the spirits to him.
According to the babayo's diagnosis, evil spirits have bound the patient's body in chains that are affecting his luck. With a sago frond and knife, the babayo proceeds to symbolically cut the patient loose while he is in trance. babayo then sucks out the evil from the patient's body and spits it into the ground.
And it looked like something was going on. I can't quite explain.
I felt a shiver, chill to the bone. But
do you remember if there was a specific moment?
it was the moment that it put and scraped it down my back. I could feel it going down to my toes.
He said, this is quite mild. He said, there are times when he will go and he will cut you with it.
Has the shaman been able to identify, are any of these grandchildren potential healers as well?
So it doesn't matter whether he'll be the last one. Upon maybe in the next few years or the next century, we have another one coming up.
So the shaman has a confidence that even after he passes away, that in the future, whatever spirit will also be able to anoint or select the next healer.
Yes. So he's not worried.
As one of the most culturally diverse states in the world, Sarawak has thrilled me with the richness of the stories hidden just beneath its surface. From mapping out the Brooke dynasty's fierce protection of their territory through the forts they built, to uncovering the dark secrets of a vanishing headhunting tradition, learning about the tragic fate of a group of strong-willed gold miners, and witnessing a spiritual ceremony performed by a traditional shaman. I'm convinced that Sarawak has many more stories that lay waiting to be discovered, and it's up to us to find them.